Hey, please take 1 second and hit that subscribe button. It's free and you'll never miss a story again. All right, now turn down the lights and let me take you into the shadows of one of the most haunted places in American sports history. Football in America isn't just a game, it's a tradition, it's religion. Families gather every Sunday, tailgates stretch across parking lots for miles, and stadiums glow like modern-day cathedrals under the lights. The roar of 80,000 voices becomes a prayer, a plea, a desperate hope for victory. But what if I told you that one of those cathedrals is cursed? The story takes us to the heart of the Midwest, an NFL stadium that once stood as the pride of its city. It wasn't the fanciest venue in the league, it wasn't the newest or most technologically advanced, but it was home. Generations had filled those weathered seats, fathers passing season tickets to sons like family heirlooms, daughters painting their faces in team colors while learning the fight song by heart, fans braving sub-zero winds and blizzards just to cheer one more down. This wasn't just a building, it was the soul of a city. But behind those decades of cheers lies a tragedy that refuses to stay buried. Back in the late 1970s, during one of the coldest and most brutal Januaries on record, the team was fighting desperately for a playoff spot that would break a decade-long drought. The stakes couldn't have been higher. The stands were jam-packed. Nearly 80,000 fans bundled in layers of blankets and jerseys, stomping their boots rhythmically on the metal bleachers to stay warm, their breath forming clouds in the frigid air. But those stomps, that passion, that unwavering loyalty, became their undoing. Near the end of the third quarter, with the home team driving toward the winning touchdown, fans jumped to their feet in unison. The entire upper deck swayed with 20,000 people screaming as one. And then, an old section of the upper deck, weakened by decades of Midwest winters and structural neglect, gave way. Metal groaned like a dying beast, screams pierced the night air, and then, collapse. What happened next still haunts the city's collective memory. Dozens of fans were thrown into chaos as steel beams twisted and concrete crumbled. Some landed hard on the frozen concrete below, bones shattering on impact. Others were crushed beneath the weight of panicked bodies and falling debris. Blood stained the pristine snow. Screams of terror mixed with the wail of sirens. Families were torn apart in seconds, children separated from parents in the chaos. The final death toll was devastating. But the survivors, they carried scars that would never heal. The city grieved like it had lost a piece of its soul. Vigils were held at the stadium gates for weeks, flowers piled higher than snowdrifts. A memorial plaque was placed outside the main entrance, inscribed with the names of those who died doing what they loved most, cheering for their team. But soon, pressure mounted. The games went on. The league didn't cancel the season, too much money was at stake. The team didn't abandon the stadium, renovation was cheaper than relocation. Life, as it always does, moved forward. But the dead, they weren't ready to leave. Security guards working the graveyard shift were the first to notice something wasn't right. During late-night patrols, long after the stadium was dark and empty, they'd hear phantom echoes reverberating through the concrete corridors, a crowd chanting, "Defense! Defense!" a referee's whistle cutting through the silence. Sometimes even the sound of a marching band playing the fight song faintly in the distance, when no one had been in the building for hours. One veteran guard, a man named Eddie, who'd worked there since the 1960s, swore he saw things that defied explanation. He'd be walking the upper concourse and catch a glimpse of a shadowy crowd in the stands, their outlines faint and flickering like static on an old TV, but unmistakably human. He'd blink, and they'd be gone, leaving only the echo of phantom applause. Eddie quit 2 months later. He never explained why. Players began to experience the supernatural presence too. Wide receivers running practice routes heard footsteps chasing them down the field, the sound of cleats on turf when they were alone. Kickers claimed they felt invisible hands brushing past their shoulders during warm-ups, disrupting their concentration on critical field goals. And in the locker rooms where players prepared for battle, the mirrors told darker stories. A rookie offensive lineman, built like a mountain but, shaken to his core, once shared that when he looked into the mirror before a primetime night game, he didn't see himself alone. Behind his reflection, crowding the mirror's surface, stood rows and rows of pale faces. Men, women, children, eyes wide with terror, mouths frozen open in eternal screams. Some were bloodied, Others appeared broken, as if they were still falling. He transferred to another team the next season. When reporters asked why, he simply said he needed a fresh start. By the 1990s, fans were whispering that the stadium was cursed. The home team, once dominant in their division, fell into a string of heartbreaking losses that just seemed to defy logic and probability. Seasons ended on last-minute fumbles. Championship games slipped away when sure-handed receivers dropped passes in the end zone. Field goals that should have been automatic curved at impossible angles, missing by inches. Analysts called it bad luck or choking under pressure. But locals who remembered the collapse, they knew the truth. They said it was the ghosts. One lifelong fan, an older man named Frank who'd held season tickets for over 40 years, told a story that still sends chills down my spine. He always sat with his grandson Tommy in section 312 of the upper deck, just 3 rows away from where the collapse had occurred. During a particularly intense Thursday night game against their division rivals, a thunderstorm rolled in. Lightning split the sky, rain pounded the roof. As the storm intensified, Frank felt the stands tremble beneath him. Not from thunder, not from the crowd stomping their feet. This was different, unnatural. When he looked around the stadium for a split second that felt like an eternity, the modern fans in their new jerseys and winter coats were gone. Instead, he saw them, the dead, bloodied faces staring back at him, broken arms hanging at unnatural angles, ghostly figures trapped in their final moments screaming as the steel cracked and gave way beneath their feet. Their eyes locked onto his, pleading, as if they were trying to warn him about something terrible coming. His 10-year-old grandson asked why his grandfather looked so pale, why his hands were shaking. But Frank never told Tommy the truth. Not until the boy was grown, married with children of his own. Only then did Frank finally share what he'd seen that night. But the story gets darker. Much darker. Years later, a journalist investigating the 40th anniversary of the tragedy discovered something that the city had buried deeper than the victims. The collapse wasn't purely an accident caused by age and weather. Hidden in archived city documents and sealed court files, she found evidence that the original blueprints showed critical structural flaws. Engineers had raised red flags, inspectors had filed warnings, but city officials ignored every single one. Why? Money. Pressure from the league to keep the team in town. Campaign contributions from the team owners. Corporate greed masquerading as civic pride. The journalist tried to publish her findings, but the story was killed by higher-ups. She received anonymous threats. Her sources disappeared. The truth was too dangerous, too expensive for the city to acknowledge. And negligence, when it costs innocent lives, breeds the kind of anger that transcends death. The kind of rage that doesn't fade with time. Every October, around the anniversary of the collapse, paranormal phenomena reach their peak. Stadium lights flicker during games for no technical reason. Entire television broadcasts glitch and cut out. Equipment malfunctions plague visiting teams but never seem to affect the home team's opponents when they're winning. Most unsettling of all, during one Monday night football game broadcast to millions, the cameras mysteriously cut out for 12 full seconds of dead air. When the feed returned, slow-motion replays showed something that network executives tried desperately to explain away: transparent figures, dozens of them, standing motionless on the 50-yard line, staring directly at the cameras with expressions of infinite sadness. The network blamed technical difficulties and atmospheric interference, but the 60,000 fans who were there that night, they swear the temperature inside the dome-covered stadium dropped 30 degrees in seconds. They swear they heard screams of anguish rising beneath the cheers. A sound so chilling that some people left early, unable to shake the feeling that they were witnessing something unholy. And here's the part that makes me wonder if this curse is absolutely real, if justice truly transcends the grave. In the 40-plus years since the collapse, the home team has never won a Super Bowl. Not once. They've had Hall of Fame quarterbacks who set records, legendary defenses that dominated for entire seasons, miracle plays that should have changed franchise history. They've reached conference championship games, been one game away from football's ultimate prize, had victory within their grasp multiple times. But every single time they get close, every time hope fills the city and fans dare to believe their suffering might end, something goes catastrophically wrong. Star players suffer season-ending injuries and freak accidents. Referees make controversial calls that change game outcomes. Equipment fails at critical moments. Coaches make inexplicably poor decisions that cost games. Fans have started calling it the curse of the collapse. But maybe it's not a curse. Maybe it's something far more profound. Maybe it's justice. Maybe the restless souls of those fans, cheated out of life by greed and negligence, will never allow the organization that failed to protect them to achieve ultimate victory. Maybe they'll haunt that field, that franchise, until the full truth is acknowledged, until someone is held accountable, or until the stadium itself is finally torn down and their spirits released. And yet, despite decades of heartbreak and supernatural encounters, the city refuses to replace the stadium. It's tradition, they say. It's history. It's too expensive to relocate. But perhaps the real reason is simpler and more sinister. The dead make excellent guardians of guilty secrets. So every Sunday, 80,000 living fans fill those same bleachers, most unaware or unwilling to believe that they're sharing the experience with thousands of ghosts who died for the simple crime of loving their team too much. The next time you're watching an NFL game and you hear that thunderous roar from a packed stadium, ask yourself this question. Is it only the living fans cheering? Or are those voices joined by the dead, forever trapped in their final moment of passion, still trying to will their team to victory from beyond the grave? Because sometimes, the loudest cheers come from the people we can't see. And sometimes the most loyal fans are the ones who never got to go home.